Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Product Launch Podcast. My name is Bal Sieber. I'm going to tell you how much I make as a product design consultant. We're going to talk a little bit about the difference between a contractor and an employee and how that can affect how much money you make. Now, the most I've ever made in a single month as a product designer was as a contractor, and it was for 22 grand. And guess what? I kept most of it because I paid lower taxes. So today I'm going to tell you exactly how much I get paid as a product designer, how much I've made in the past, how much I made over the course of my career, and why choosing the right kind of work could be the difference between making a lot of money or losing out. So, what is the ideal scenario? This is just my experience and my opinion, but I'm going to start with a strong opinion, which is the best way to work as a product designer is to be a contract consultant working for just one company while still keeping in touch with your network. This setup gives you a stable income, just like having a full time job, but with all the tax benefits of running your own business. And the best part, networking becomes fun because you're not just doing it to survive, you're building relationships because you want to. So to spell this out for you, we're going to weigh contractor versus employee. All right. So first things first, just like the title of this video says, we'll talk numbers. How much do I actually make? How much have I made in the past? And why do I think the setup of contract consultant is better? Well, as an employee, my salary changed a lot over the course of my career. At the start, I earned about 50 grand a year and I paid roughly 14% in taxes. That meant I took home about 3,600 a month. Now, I was young, I was in my early 20s, and that actually felt like a lot of money to me at the time. Now I can barely imagine surviving on that. Later, when I got more experience, I earned as much as 175 grand a year as a salary. That sounds great, right? But I paid 35% in taxes. I lived in California, which meant my monthly take home pay was a little less than 10 grand. 10 grand is the maximum I ever made per month as an employee. And keep in mind, when I'm saying an employee, I'm talking about I go to an office every day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. Typical classic in office, not work from home, not working remote, not digital nomad, just like going to an office. Now I exclusively work as a contract consultant and things are very different. I can make the same or much, much more than I did as an employee, but I keep a lot more because I'm taxed as a business. Now, the most that I've made as a contractor was around 22 grand a month, but I only paid 6% in taxes. That means I took home almost 20 grand. As an employee, I never came close to taking home that kind of money. So let's weigh out the real benefits versus shortcomings of being a contractor or an employee, because both have benefits and they both have shortcomings. I think being a contractor is much, much better, but it's more than just the amount of money that you can make, it's the lifestyle. So here's why I think being a contractor is better. As an employee, you're on company time, even if you're working remote. Usually, you're working 9 to 5. You need to be available to the rest of your team over Slack. You have meetings. You're expected to be available for meetings or on Slack during the 9 to 5 hours. You have to work by the company schedule and you just don't have much freedom. Even if you're working remote, even if you're able to travel, if you have to be at a certain place with your Slack open and your calendar open, you're still kind of chained to your desk. And no one wants that feeling of being chained to their desk. Now, as a contract consultant, you get paid for results, not for the hours you put in. This means you can work whenever and wherever you want, as long as part of your day overlaps with the company for communication reasons. This lets me work in focus sessions with long breaks in between, which makes me way more productive. It gets you out of this, I'm on company time, I clock in at a certain time, and I work or am available all day between these times. That is an employee mindset, and that is not a path to happiness, and it's certainly not a path to freedom. You want to be able to construct your day the way that works for you, whether it's matching your circadian rhythm, whether it revolves around your hobbies and interests, or it's just what you know delivers the best results for your clients. So what does that look like for me? My ideal work day Okay, so let's talk about my ideal workday. Naval Ravikant once said, work like a lion, not like a cow. A lion hunts with intense focus and then it rests and recovers, whereas a cow just grazes on grass all day. Now, I prefer to work like a lion, where I go in bursts of high intensity focus, where I'm just cut off from the world, and then I rest, I recover. Maybe I go to the gym. Maybe I go for a long walk. Maybe I eat some food. Maybe I take a nap. Maybe I do a yoga class, whatever I want. Whereas when you do that 9 to 5 thing, you're basically grazing all day, like half working, if you know what I mean. So my typical day that I construct based on what gets the most results for me is I usually do 3 cheaper focused sessions. And then in between, I take long breaks to work out, eat, or nap. That is so much more productive and healthy for me. And compared to when I worked a 9 hour day as an employee, where I just ended up grazing and half working, half scrolling, that wasn't good for me and it wasn't good for the company. And whether you go to an office or you work remote, no one I know can work all out for 8 or 9 hours straight. I get it. Some people like to have the cutoff where, they're available from 9 to 5 and then they're not available after that. So there's a clear separation between work and life. But here's the thing, when you work for yourself as a consultant, life and work just mix together. So I work all day, sort of. I start in the morning and I end in the late evening, but I have these big breaks in between. I don't need to have this hard separation because I don't have a boss who's like breathing down my neck or texting me and hitting me up trying to get my attention. So imagine this. Imagine being able to work in focused bursts where you have nothing on your computer except for what you're working on. And you do that for like 3 hours hard, and then you completely separate yourself from it for a couple hours. Compare that to working 8 or 9 hours straight with your Slack window open that you're monitoring in case someone messages you. You've got your calendar open just in case someone throws a meeting at any moment, or maybe you already have just a cluster of meetings throughout the day. That is not focused work. You're not focused. You are in a partial work mode. So not only as a consultant can I earn more and keep more due to taxes, but being a contract consultant lets me work when I'm at my best, which gets the best results for the company and for me. Being a contractor, you're encouraged to get results, not just fill time. Okay, it wouldn't make sense to talk about being a product designer without tackling the subscription model and comparing that to consulting. Okay, subscription model, of course, is when you are basically a freelancer and you get clients and you charge them every month recurring. It's very popular right now, and there's a lot of benefits to it. And I've tried this subscription model where you have multiple clients at once. This setup has some benefits, multiple income streams for one, fewer meetings. These are all really good, and complete independence with time and location. So those are great, but there's also some challenges. I've found, at least, there's high competition, low prices, and constant client turnover. This pricing model of the subscription, you're competing with everyone across the world. That means like the 16-year-old kid in his mom's basement in the Philippines who's willing to do a crazy amount of work for an extremely low price. It's kind of like working on Fiverr or Upwork. It's a race to the bottom. There's so much competition that clients make their choices based on price. So you're encouraged to lower your prices. Basically, the pricing model becomes a race to the bottom because clients have so many options for design services that they're going to pick based on the price instead of quality. So if you're not a very good designer, this could be the right model for you. But if you are a very experienced, high quality designer with a great portfolio, it means you're competing with people willing to do average work for a low rate. And having a lot of low touch clients also, it means high churn. You don't have those clients forever. You might have them for a month, you might have them for 3 months, you might have them for 6 months. but you're always going to be looking for new clients to replace the ones you lose. Stress. On the other hand, being a contract consultant with one company, that gives you a stable income, the chance to make meaningful changes because you're working with one company. So you're like embedded in that company and you can actually take pride in your work and take ownership. It also gives you the opportunity to build connections within that company. In my opinion, this is the best of both worlds. You build a good relationship with your client, you care about the work, you get paid for high quality results, and you still have the freedom to work from anywhere on your own schedule. Now, maybe there's a little bit of a downside. If you're working with one client, you're giving your all to them. So you can't really grow your business by adding more clients. And you have less flexibility to say no to projects. If that one client has a project that isn't in your sweet spot, you kind of still need to take it and do it. You can't really say no like you could with a subscription service or the classic freelance model. But the benefits far outweigh the detractions. Another reason why I'm all about contracting as a consultant rather than being an employee is because I did the employee thing for years and I want to tackle this myth about the corporate climb. Okay, let's talk about the myth of the corporate ladder. The only real benefit that I see of being an employee is the game of climbing the corporate ladder. Getting promoted every few years and getting a fancy title is really tempting, especially when you're young. I know that I wanted to get promoted more than anything when I was first starting out. It's what fueled my desire for my career because I was programmed that that's what I needed to want. And the corporate ladder might seem like the best path to success, getting promoted, getting a better title, more status, more responsibilities. But here's the truth. In my experience, just my experience, the pay increase doesn't usually match the increase in stress and responsibilities. You work longer hours, you deal with office politics, you often don't have anything to show for your work, you're not building your portfolio. It's a shittier job. It's only worth it if you value titles more than your personal time and freedom, or if you're better at managing people than actually doing design work. That leads me to another subject and the difference between an individual contributor versus a manager. Because even as a contract consultant, where you're embedded with a company, you still have a title and you can still move up that ladder. You can move from an individual contributor to a manager. And I think there's a little bit of a debate between being an IC and going into management. As an IC, you have an independent schedule. You build your portfolio to show your skills, and it's easier to take on multiple projects. But you can't always say no to certain projects, and you might end up working alone a lot. As a manager, you get a higher status title, you help others grow, you get exposure to the business side of things. These are all very valuable. But you're often stuck in meetings dealing with these office politics, and you don't have a portfolio to prove your skills after it. I've found that management is just a drain of energy, and the types of meetings, the types of conversations, your workday is just filled with multitasking as opposed to like focused work that you feel good about. Now, I realize if you've never attained a high status title in your life, that you're naturally going to want to do that just for yourself, just to know that you can do it. And I get it. But once you've achieved that title, I encourage you to just let it go and think about your lifestyle and your happiness rather than your title. Like what job actually makes you happier? And I think if you have a good client with good projects, meaning like an awesome project that you're really into, being a contract consultant and an IC is the best because you have the most freedom and the most passion for your work. You do not want to be an employee and you do not want to go into management. Those two things suck. Maybe not at first. Maybe the status of the title, the feeling of accomplishment will make you feel good, but it's not going to last. After a while, maybe it takes years. I know it took years for me to figure this out. Eventually, you just realize you're caught in this system that is just meant to grind you down until you burn out. Okay, a little bit of personal story to wrap all of this up. When I first switched to contract consulting, I was nervous. I worked with a company that paid me at the time 15 grand a month, and I was taxed around 14%. Now, the kicker is the company, because I was embedded with the company and I worked my way up a little bit, I got to see the business. So I knew they were charging 42 grand a month for me to their client. Now, you'd think that I'd feel like I was getting the short end of the stick, right? But no, I didn't. I actually felt empowered. Why? Because I was a contractor. I had control over my work. I kept more of what I earned, and I had the flexibility to work the way that suited me best. I was able to travel 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time. Sometimes I would travel, 1 month at a time, keep going to a different place and seeing the world and living my life, not putting it off to another day. I wasn't stuck in a 9 to 5 schedule, and I didn't have to network out of desperation. That's when you're a freelancer, if you have a subscription model, or you don't have that one client as a consultant, you got to drum up business, and it's a little cringy, right? Like there's nothing wrong with networking, but if you have this feeling behind you of like, I got to find a client, because I know I'm going to lose one this month, or I lost one last month. Man, that's just stress you don't want. That is the one benefit of being an employee, is that steady paycheck. And you can get that steady paycheck as a contract consultant. So what I found when I became a contract consultant was I could build relationships at my own pace without worrying about where my next paycheck would come from. And this setup let me work intensely when I needed and then truly rest afterward, which for me is the ultimate work-life balance. Okay, here's the big takeaway. The way you set up your work can be just as important as the work that you do. Okay, so if freedom, flexibility, and making more money are your goals, consider contract consulting or a hybrid model where you work with one company and maybe you keep side projects. The corporate ladder might be the right fit if you value titles and prestige, but if you want more financial and personal freedom, there are smarter ways to work. All right, take control of your career path, negotiate what works best for you, and don't be afraid to redefine success in your own way. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below. Thanks.